Hamilton gets an $80 million offer from Red Bull. This is probably the first time you're hearing about this news, so I urge you to stay until the end before talking about it with your friends, because every detail matters. Subscribe just to stay tuned for the Formula One news no one else explains to you. The Formula One paddock has been completely upended. Not shaken. Not stirred. Shattered. Every garage, every briefing room, every back-channel phone line is crackling with the same four words: Hamilton to Red Bull? And the answer, depending on who you ask, might be dangerously close to yes. What began as a faint whisper under the desert stars of Bahrain has erupted into a full-blown firestorm of drama, betrayal, strategic espionage, and seismic financial warfare. Christian Horner, the master puppeteer of Milton Keynes, the architect of Red Bull's ruthless rise to dominance, has reportedly extended an offer so colossal, so reality-bending, so completely unhinged from the usual laws of F1 logic, that it's turning Ferrari's dream into a living nightmare. €80 million per year. Let that sink in. Not over several seasons. Not bundled with performance bonuses. That's the flat rate. Per season. On top of that, insiders are now confirming previously undisclosed perks: a personal fleet of Red Bull-developed EV hypercars, early equity in Red Bull Advanced Technologies, and a long-term seat on the Red Bull Performance Advisory Board post-retirement. In simple terms, Red Bull isn't offering Hamilton a drive. They're offering him dynastic power. But that's not all. Sources now reveal that part of the package includes the formation of a private innovation team within Red Bull, dedicated solely to implementing Hamilton's feedback on car setup, ergonomics, and energy deployment systems. This elite unit would be shielded from the rest of the engineering department, reporting only to the top brass and Hamilton himself. No driver in history has been given this level of influence. Not Schumacher. Not Senna. Not even Verstappen. Subscribe just to stay tuned for the Formula One news no one else explains to you. And the psychological warfare? Meticulously calculated. Horner is not just dangling speed and cash. He's offering unfinished business. Everyone remembers Abu Dhabi 2021. Horner knows that Scar is still raw. He knows Lewis never got his equal machinery revenge tour. And now he's proposing the ultimate redemption arc: step inside the machine that broke you, and bend it to your will. One senior Red Bull official was overheard at a private dinner saying, "This isn't a contract. It's a sword. We're handing it to him and saying, you know exactly where to strike." Meanwhile, Ferrari is falling into disarray. Panic mode doesn't even begin to describe it. Executives in Maranello are reportedly furious and blindsided, with some describing Hamilton's silence as a calculated power play. They had believed they had secured their golden era. Hamilton's signature in 2023 was supposed to mark the resurrection of the prancing horse. But now, the entire foundation is cracking. Ferrari's top leadership team has allegedly begun an internal audit of all current contracts to determine how much more they can afford to throw at Hamilton to keep him on Italian soil. One insider described the mood as paranoid, suspicious of every glance, every offhand remark, every engineer who's even casually spoken with Red Bull personnel. Hamilton, once treated like a messiah, is now being watched like a saboteur. Even more explosive are new reports that John Elkann, Ferrari's chairman, has been personally involved in last-minute contract renegotiation talks, offering Hamilton a €70 million annual renewal, plus a special Ferrari-designed limited edition road car to bear his name, the Ferrari LH1, rumored to be the fastest production car in company history. But it might already be too late. Within Ferrari, the situation with Charles Leclerc has now become toxic. Their already fragile coexistence has reportedly snapped. Leclerc, long positioned as the chosen heir to Ferrari's throne, now sees Hamilton's potential exit, or worse, his stay under these new terms, as a threat not just to his role, but to his entire identity within the team. He has allegedly refused joint media obligations and is now requesting complete strategic independence during races. One engineer, speaking off the record, said, "It's two teams wearing one suit. There's red paint, but two different engines underneath." Privately, Leclerc is believed to have told friends in Monaco that he feels betrayed twice. First by Ferrari for bringing in Hamilton on a bigger contract, and now again as they scramble to keep him at any cost. The trust is broken. The chemistry? Radioactive. And what about Verstappen? While his public statements remain carefully neutral, insiders suggest the Dutch driver is seething. He has not forgotten, or forgiven, the years of tension with Hamilton. And now the prospect of Lewis stepping into his team, with an even bigger paycheck, special privileges, and whispers of Red Bull rebranding its long-term direction around Hamilton, has ignited something dangerous. Verstappen is reportedly revisiting his exit clauses and has intensified private conversations with Mercedes and Porsche executives. It's no longer hypothetical, he's actively preparing for a nuclear option. Subscribe just to stay tuned for the Formula One news no one else explains to you. Meanwhile, Hamilton's camp continues to maintain utter silence. Not a single word of confirmation. No denial. No comment. Just total, chilling, calculated quiet. Which is more deafening than any announcement could be. This isn't indecision. This is control. This is leverage. This is Hamilton knowing exactly how much he is worth and letting the entire Formula One universe twist itself into a pretzel of anxiety while he considers his next move. Every day that passes without a statement is another twist of the knife. Every leaked clause. Every Red Bull executive no comment. Every Verstappen glare. Every Ferrari plea. The tension is suffocating. The drama is operatic. The stakes? Apocalyptic. And now, new information suggests that Hamilton's team has requested a private track day in Red Bull's RB20 simulator, masked as a technology collaboration review through a third-party consultancy. If this is true, and insiders insist it is, then the decision may already be made. He's not just entertaining the offer. He's testing the crown. And if he takes it, if Hamilton puts on the blue and red suit, and walks into the Red Bull garage as its new king, Formula One will enter an age of war unlike anything it's ever seen. No team alliances will survive. No driver will be untouched. No fanbase will be able to breathe. And the silence from Hamilton? It's not hesitation. It's the sound of the sport holding its breath before the storm. It began with silence. Not the usual kind that follows a race. Not the quiet of debriefs or overnight simulator work. This was the silence of something monumental being planned behind layers of secrecy, of something so staggering, so reality-altering, it had to be kept away from even the faintest whisper of the media. While the world focused on qualifying results, tire degradation, and press conference quotes, Red Bull and Lewis Hamilton were engaged in a clandestine courtship that defied logic, precedent, and everything anyone thought they knew about the power dynamics of Formula One. This wasn't a contract. It wasn't a negotiation. It was the construction of an empire behind closed doors. No one expected Red Bull to do it. No one thought they had the nerve. But inside the top floors of their private Milton Keynes HQ, rooms off limits to everyone but the highest tier of personnel, Christian Horner and a microscopic circle of confidants were building a deal so aggressive, so audacious, it bordered on the mythological. This wasn't about replacing Perez. It wasn't even about strengthening the team. It was about reshaping the sport from the inside out, and placing Red Bull not just on top, but in a realm above F1 itself. It started in the winter, in the shadows of the off-season, when most teams were laser-focused on weight reduction and CFD simulations. Red Bull, however, was writing a script that read like fantasy fiction. They drafted a full-scale multi-year master proposal for Lewis Hamilton, a package engineered not just to seduce him, but to rewire how he thought about what being a driver could even mean. The opening number was violent in scale, 80 million euros per season, tax-exempt, with optional extensions based on titles and pole positions. But that was just the first page. If Hamilton delivered a championship under Red Bull's flag, and surpassed specific technical metrics, including qualifying domination, race win percentage, and total team point share, the bonuses alone would launch the figure past 110 million euros annually, eclipsing anything even the most lucrative manufacturer-backed deals had ever dared suggest. Then came the structural concessions. Hamilton would be granted a Tier 1 competitive clause, allowing him not only access to full telemetry parity with Max Verstappen, but also input on strategic direction calls during race weekends. Not post-race feedback. Real-time voice in the race wall discussions. The team wouldn't just share data, they'd integrate his decisions. For a team notorious for being Max-centric, this was more than generous. It was radical. The document outlined something even more shocking, a flexible teammate clause. After the 2025 season, Hamilton would be able to initiate a formal review process of any current or proposed teammate, not to veto outright, but to influence team dynamics, culture, and synergy. If tensions rose, if personalities clashed, he would have a legitimate path to recalibrate his environment. Never before had Red Bull even entertained this idea. Yet here it was, signed in ink by the same organization that once said, "We don't do two alphas." Even more unbelievable was the personal freedom he'd be afforded. Hamilton's off-track empire, spanning fashion, philanthropy, tech ventures, media, climate activism, would not only be untouched by Red Bull's rigid sponsorship framework but endorsed. He'd be free to maintain and even expand deals with brands like Tommy Hilfiger, Bose, or Apple. He could collaborate with sustainability startups, attend Met Gala events, partner with art houses in Paris, all without asking for permission. Red Bull, instead of containing him, would amplify him. And at the heart of the deal? A fully operational RB20 simulator installed inside Hamilton's private Monaco estate. Not a toy. Not a showpiece. A fully functional, factory-grade racing cockpit, calibrated weekly to match the real-time data from the factory's primary sim. It would come with live-link capability, giving him access to performance engineers, strategy advisors, and data analysts on demand, 24/7. A personal engineering hotline. A direct neural connection to the beating heart of Red Bull racing, in his living room. But this wasn't just technology and freedom. This was legacy. Christian Horner's personal letter didn't list incentives. It wasn't adorned with logos or diplomatic signatures. It was handwritten, placed alone at the top of the folder. It said, "Two dynasties. One team. Let's break the sport together." The moment Hamilton's team read it, the tone of everything shifted. His inner circle, Mark Hines, legal advisors, data architects, media experts, mobilized instantly. They dissected the contract from every angle. They didn't just look at the money. They broke down what this deal meant geopolitically within F1. How it would shift power away from Mercedes, fragment Ferrari's ambitions, trigger massive instability in driver markets, and turn Red Bull from a championship team into an all-consuming gravitational force. And then, without alerting a single journalist, Hamilton and Horner met again. Not at the paddock. Not even at a team facility. But at a privately rented rooftop in Abu Dhabi, overlooking the city skyline, with armed security stationed below and signal jammers ensuring zero surveillance. The dinner that followed wasn't about terms. It was about destiny. Horner reportedly laid it out without a hint of restraint. "Max is a weapon. You're a kingmaker. You've both built dynasties. But this? This is how we go beyond legacy. Beyond records. We create a super team that redefines competition. Not teammates. Titans. In one car. Two storms in one chassis." He wasn't pitching rivalry. He was pitching ascendancy. The total domination of the sport, its audience, its narrative. He envisioned a scenario where Hamilton and Verstappen didn't cancel each other out. They amplified one another. Every weekend, a nuclear event. Every race, a global spectacle. The entire F1 calendar turning into a 23-part epic. Viewership would explode. The world wouldn't know how to process it, and that was the point. And Hamilton? He listened. He didn't laugh. He didn't deflect. He understood the gravity. He saw the magnitude. And for the first time in years, insiders say, he looked genuinely intrigued by a proposal not grounded in the past, not in legacy protection, but in legend creation. Since that meeting, his behavior has shifted. He's distanced himself from certain media routines. He's started receiving encrypted data packets from private sources. He's holding late-night simulation runs under new names at off-grid locations. His Mercedes engineers don't have all the answers anymore, because Lewis is keeping some of the questions to himself. No one knows which way it will go. If he says yes, the tectonic plates of Formula One will rip apart. Ferrari will scramble to rebuild an identity. Mercedes will be forced into a full-scale reimagining. Every young driver's path to the top will become exponentially more complex. The Verstappen-Hamilton axis will draw in billions, not millions, of new fans. Media wars will erupt. Sponsor bidding wars will get violent. The championship? It'll be a bonus. The event will be the point. And if he walks away? Then the world will know he turned down the most powerful offer in racing history, not because it wasn't enough, but because he had something bigger planned. Because sometimes, a king doesn't join another kingdom. He builds his own. He didn't walk into the conversation like a man seeking permission. He entered like a force of nature who had already made his decision, not to join, but to conquer. Lewis Hamilton wasn't interested in negotiation. He wasn't there to charm, to persuade, or to make headlines. He was there to evaluate the structure of power inside Red Bull, racing from the ground up. And if what he saw wasn't compatible with his singular obsession, victory at all costs, he'd walk away without hesitation. But if it was? If it passed the test? The entire landscape of Formula One would shift on its axis, and the era of predictability would be over. Behind closed doors, he wasn't casual. He wasn't diplomatic. He was clinical, strategic, razor-sharp. He asked about more than just car performance. He went after the operational soul of the team. He questioned how race day calls were made. He demanded to know the structure of communication between pit wall and driver, not in theory, but in crisis. Who gets priority when both drivers are on a charging strategy? What happens when upgrades arrive and there's only one package available? Does Verstappen get it by default? Who truly owns the strategic heartbeat of the team? Hamilton didn't need promises. He wanted frameworks. He needed to hear in plain terms that the entire Red Bull apparatus, the engineers, the aerodynamic team, the sim staff, the tire analysts, the ERS development crew, would not continue to orbit around Verstappen alone. If they couldn't commit to parity, to structural balance, to real, provable equality of investment and execution, then he wouldn't even finish the espresso. And yet Horner, to his credit, came prepared. He didn't offer platitudes. He offered infrastructure. A draft plan of split development cycles. A new internal policy outlining dual-lead project management between Hamilton and Verstappen's sides of the garage. Even a confidential document detailing long-term succession planning in case either driver chose to retire within the next 3 seasons. Red Bull wasn't just pitching Hamilton a seat. They were pitching him a shared empire. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared the world for the aftershock. The moment the whispers leaked, first through encrypted WhatsApp chats between insiders, then into a murmuring frenzy among team personnel, the sport erupted. No official confirmation. No press release. Just possibility. Just the idea that Hamilton, the face of modern Formula One, could be preparing to wear the colors of the very team he spent years fighting on track, and fans across the world lost their collective minds. Red Bull Hamilton mock-ups went viral. Fan renders of the RB21 bearing the number 44, decked out in a deep electric blue with chrome accents, flooded Instagram and X within minutes. Commentators dropped subtle references in qualifying broadcasts. Journalists began dropping breadcrumbs in long-form interviews. Unnamed sources became the most quoted people on the planet. Hamilton in Red Bull gear didn't just feel like a rumor, it felt like destiny being rewritten in real time. Within 48 hours, global bookmakers slashed odds. Hamilton to Red Bull became the most bet-on sports transfer rumor since Ronaldo returned to Manchester United. Merch stores experienced traffic spikes as fans hunted for unofficial crossover merchandise. YouTube exploded with video essays, simulations, and breakdowns of what if Hamilton joins Red Bull. Like it was a Marvel multiverse event. Google searches for Verstappen-Hamilton teammates surged over 4,000% in less than a day. And yet, through all of it, Hamilton remained nearly silent, but never irrelevant. He let the rumors breathe. He let the world speculate. He began making subtle shifts, small things, but unmistakable to those who followed him for years. His demeanor in the paddock grew sharper. His interviews became more ambiguous. He started staying longer after media briefings, not to answer more, but to say less. When asked directly whether he had spoken to Red Bull, he raised an eyebrow and replied, with a kind of deliberate detachment that only someone in total control can deliver. I'm always open to possibilities. But I don't chase comfort. I chase victory. It was a dagger dipped in ice. Suddenly, every team boss was on alert. Inside McLaren, upper-level executives began reviewing long-term contracts, just in case the dominoes started falling. At Aston Martin, marketing teams were told to pause branding campaigns involving Alonso-Hamilton comparisons. Ferrari went into panic mode, rumors swirled of internal investigations, blame being shifted between departments, and even whispers of a senior staffer offering to resign for losing control of the narrative. At Mercedes, the silence became so total it was almost performative. It wasn't grief. It was shock. Hamilton, their crown jewel for over a decade, might go to Red Bull. The enemy. The apex predator of the current era. And Verstappen? Sources inside Red Bull described his reaction as frosted steel. Not anger. Not fear. Calculation. Because Max knows exactly what this means. He knows that if Hamilton comes, the story changes. Every win gets scrutinized. Every strategy gets second-guessed. Every millisecond of telemetry gets compared. It won't be his garage anymore. It will be a gladiator arena. And in a sport where the battle starts on Thursday and doesn't end until Sunday evening, two kings cannot rule the same empire in peace. Imagine the fireworks. FP1. Hamilton sets fastest time by 0.012 seconds. Verstappen says he held back a bit. FP2. Verstappen answers with a dominant long-run pace. Hamilton shrugs and says, just gathering data. Quali. They lock out the front row, separated by half a tenth. Race day. Strategy divergence. One undercuts, the other defends. Tension builds. The team radio erupts. One engineer screams box now, while the other pleads hold position. Horner tries to keep it together on the pit wall, but behind the scenes? Chaos. Mutiny. Whispers of favoritism. Rumors of sabotage. And the whole world watching with their hearts in their throats, begging for contact at turn 1. Not because they want to crash, but because they want the truth. Who is faster? Who is greater? And that's what Hamilton knows. That's the real bait. The challenge not just to win, but to defeat the one rival history will always measure him against. Not in different cars. Not in different conditions. Not with different equipment. But head-to-head. Same machine. Same team. Same shot. Equal tires. Equal data. No more hypotheticals. No more excuses. Just war. Because Hamilton isn't chasing another trophy. He's chasing finality. Closure. The kind of eternal vindication that numbers alone can't provide. He doesn't just want to be one of the greatest. He wants to erase the need for comparison. And to do that, he has to walk into the lion's den, unarmed, and take the crown, not from the paddock, not from the media, but from Verstappen himself. And if it happens, if the deal is real, if the contract is signed, if the press conference comes and the racing world finally hears, I'll be driving for Red Bull Racing, then Formula One doesn't enter a new chapter. It starts an entirely new book. One where every race is a powder keg. One where dominance and destruction live side by side. One where the sport itself becomes a living legend again.